When the news broke on late Wednesday night of John Harbaugh being hired by the New York Giants, that was in the works, I decided to go grab my friend Bruce Beck, who does a terrific job at NBC New York, longtime sports director there. He's covered New York sports forever. So he joined us late Wednesday night. Want to give you some of that conversation now. And I asked him flat out what this move means for the Giants.
They needed this coach in the worst way. This has been a dismal 10-year stretch. I checked the numbers, 55, 99, and 1. You talk about 1 playoffs in the last 9 seasons, 7 10-loss seasons in the last 9. I mean, this is the time to turn things around. There's hope. And I think that there's only one guy. I think Harbaugh is the guy that can make this happen, and the Giants fans will go crazy.
What does it say about where the Giants are positioned vis-a-vis, where they are picking in this draft? I know they don't have another pick in the first couple rounds. They might be able to trade. Where they are cap space-wise, I think they've got about $21 million in cap space for this offseason, a lot more next offseason. What does it say about where the Giants are positioned that Harbaugh chose them ultimately?
Jason, I think it's all about one guy, Jaxson Dart. In this league, you need a coach and you need a quarterback. The Giants need a coach. They think they have the franchise quarterback. We still have to find out if he can learn how to slide, because he's one hit away from missing a lot of games, and he hasn't really learned that yet. But I truly believe that they are positioned going forward with Cam Scattermoo coming back. You've got Malik Neighbors coming back. You've got Abdul Carter, who got better later in the year when he started to learn what it means to be a professional. You've got Dexter Lawrence still there. So there's a lot of pieces. Brian Burns. And I think if you look at this roster, it's young with their key people, and there's enough other components at this point that I think that for a coach who just got fired, he just hit the jackpot in terms of what was out there. And I think the Giants have the most possibility. Doesn't mean they're going to win right away, but for the first time in years, there is hope. And you're right, the 5th pick, not as good as the 1st pick or the 2nd pick, but you can get a quality player and you can still trade down. And it's not about getting the quarterback. They didn't need a quarterback here. They needed a coach. And that's the most important thing for the Giants.
Speaking of coaching, and I brought this up in the big story to start the show, I think it's just as important as who he's bringing in as with him as assistants. Who's he bringing in as his offensive coordinator? Who's
You're right.
Bringing in, because when you talk about all the best teams in the league right now, when you talk about the Niners, you're talking about Robert Saleh, which is crazy to think about, especially if you're a New York sports fan, considering the lack of success he had with the Jets. If you're talking about the Broncos, you're talking about Vance Joseph and what he's done. Ben Johnson when he was in Detroit with the Lions, and then he became a head coach. I think it's just as important who he is bringing with him. And that's the more interesting conversation that I'm fascinated to see is, does a Mike McDaniels come, along with him because he's available. And I don't know if he's going to get a head coaching gig in this cycle. That's what I'm fascinated to see, Bruce.
I mean, I think, Jason, when you talk around the league, that is a very pertinent question. But in this situation, it's about the culture. It's about changing the losing culture. It's about establishing discipline. It's about not letting Abdul Carter, fall asleep in meetings. It's about getting this franchise back. When Tom Coughlin walked out that room, there hasn't been a real pro as a head coach since. And I think that's what they need. I think even Mike Kafka could get by if he had to as an offensive coordinator. He wouldn't be my first choice, but I think that's less important in this case than it would be with other teams around the league. It would be nice to get an offensive-minded coach that comes in that can deal with Jaxson Dart, but John Harbaugh will find somebody, and I think they'll do just fine. I don't think it's as important as it would be if you were hiring in Atlanta right now or in Miami or in Tennessee. That's where I think the coordinator thing might jump because I've seen the disaster this has been for so many years, and they need somebody at the top.
Ownership matters too. The Maras, and the leadership that they have sort of brought for all these years. And it feels like the Giants still had enough cachet, despite a decade of losing, essentially, Bruce. It says a lot that a team that has struggled as much as they have for the last decade were still able to reel in this guy.
I mean, they're a legacy franchise, although they're a mom and pop franchise, which was actually purchased for $500. And now they're worth $10 billion. I mean, this still is John Mara. He's battling cancer nobly. Steve Tisch. There is a lot of family when you talk about the Mara group that's still within the organization, including Chris Mara. I truly believe that this is a franchise that somehow can get back on the track, although it felt like they couldn't for so many years. And I think you're totally right. I honestly think that it comes down to where would John Harbaugh like to coach? And think about this, Jason. About a week ago, when he was let go by the Ravens, he probably was really down. Like, what the heck? After all these years, Steve's calling me and telling me that I'm fired? You know what? All of a sudden, he became a 63-year-old free agent. In a market where there are 8 or 9 teams looking for coaches, it was like the perfect storm. And it's great to have a rebirth, a renaissance, starting all over. And can you think of a better place to do it than in New York? Because if you win, you will be celebrated. You will somehow go up the Canyon of Heroes if you ever get a Super Bowl trophy. So I think it's it's a no-lose situation. He's not coming into a franchise which has been good lately. If he wins 7 games, he'll be a hero.
And I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting, and close on this point. Tom Coughlin, his first chapter in the NFL was Jacksonville. And he had success there. They didn't win a Super Bowl, but he had success there. And that next chapter for him, after years in Jacksonville, was the Giants job. And we saw how that turned out. There's kind of some parallels there to the way that John Harbaugh now, later in his career, but his second chapter is the Giants.
I mean, I think you're looking at one of the most successful coaches in the NFL over the past 20 years, and now he's pivoting, not because he wanted to, but now that it's been done for him, I think it's a good match.
Bruce Beck, NBC4 New York, I appreciate it. Late on a Wednesday night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Hi there, I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got SportsWrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as exciting. They're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.